Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Two Coaches.
Yeah.
I am
Hi.
Michelle Teague. How's it going, Betty? Great to see you.
Oh, it's going. It's been a little busy.
Yeah,
So, it's been an interesting couple weeks. So I'm glad I'm here and being able to do this recording with you. And it's a great topic.
it
So,
is. This is last time we got together, we talked about active listening, if I remember right.
mhm. Yep.
We talked about how to use it in the workplace to become a better and stronger leader. This time we're talking about something slightly different. We're talking about uh, active communication, and this
Mhm.
is something that you actually have done some training on before.
Yeah, I was lucky. I worked under Dr. Peter Senge, and he really got us into doing dialogue, which is really deep
Mhm.
communication where you really need active listening skills and to be able to um, accept what other people are saying and so forth. So we're going to start the road to that type of communication. We don't want to dump people in right away, but today's going to be a good day because there is a difference between active communication and active listening. So in negotiating training, which everybody has at some time in their life, right?
Mhm.
The term active communication and active listening get thrown around often. They get confused. People say, well, I'm active listening, so I must be communicating. Well, not necessarily. So while these two terms share commonalities, they also have major differences. And we need to understand the difference between active communication and active listening because you need to know when to use active listening so
Mhm.
you can really communicate clearly, concisely, and also you're hearing the other person, which that's where the active listening in, but you're able to deliver a message and get things done. So active communication is a technique that enables you to verbally and non-verbally communicate in a way that makes you agreeable and easy to understand. And that may be necessary in today's environment when we have the millennials
Mhm.
and the next generation coming up, and they've been communicating in a different way. And now they're in a environment where communication is really verbal and body language and not so much technology as much as they've been using all their life. So active listening is a technique that uses verbal and nonverbal cues. So you look at body language and you keep eye contact and nodding to
Mhm.
indicate that you're making a real effort to understand what they're saying, what they want to message to you, and you also gain their trust. So now
Uh,
that you're familiar with the two concepts, we're going to explore is more it in more detail.
yeah, and we're going to start by looking at how active communication and active listening are different. Okay, because they are two different skills. At a basic level, active communication is typically very me focused, as in what do I need to do differently, while active listening is typically you focused, as in what can I get my counterpart or my partner or the person that I'm communicating with to do differently. And though they're on different ends of the spectrum, the premise behind each of these is actually the same. They are both accomplished by adjusting your behavior. And when we say adjusting your behavior, you mean the person who's trying to communicate, the person who's trying to be understood. Okay, you need to adjust your behavior. And with that simple shift in mindset and the use of emotional intelligence, which we have talked about several times on here, you begin to focus on changing your behavior so that it will help get a better response from the person that you are communicating with. And
Yeah,
it's all about
yeah,
making these shifts.
that's right. I mean, many times we've had clients that they're having a conflict with somebody,
Mhm.
and after coaching them and training them, it tends to just lead to the fact that they need to communicate better, listen to each other, but they also really have to have a back and forth type of
Mhm.
communication where they're summarizing what the other's saying so that each party can get agreement. And when that happens, they're both surprised about each other because they have impressions about
Mhm.
their manager, who is not a nice person in their mind, and the employee, who they say is a real lazy person in their mind, and they find out that that's not true, that something's missing and it hasn't been communicated to each other, and they haven't really listened or observed what that person needs. So that's what it is all about.
The the
So
the the other
go ahead.
thing, Betty, is, I think what happens is when that communication happens and when it occurs, they find out there's a lot more commonality than they thought. And, that's the key to communication and to getting to the point where you're understood, is being able to find that common ground and then expand from there.
That's right. That's right. So again, we say how active communication leads to active listening. And I really, like you said, I think of active listening as a skill,
Mhm,
one of the skills, along with emotional intelligence, to be able to actively communicate. And in essence, when it expands, it's the communication culture of the organization many
mhm,
times. So, but once you have an understanding of active communication and active listening, you'll begin to see how two skills complement each other.
mhm,
So, how do they complement each other? Active communication often creates opportunities for active listening. So, if you're going into something that you're saying, I need to communicate with that person and they need to communicate with me, then you need to use active listening because it's a really strong tool. So, by setting the tone of collaboration initially, you'll open the door for your counterpart to return the favor. They'll
mhm,
be open to hear you, and they'll feel that they have trust to be able to participate in the conversation. So usually when someone gets a yes, they stop listening. Maybe the other side says yes or yes, but in many cases your brain shuts off after the yes, and
mhm,
value information is lost to the other. So you're thinking, I need them to do what I want them to do. So you've talked to them about what the problem is
mhm,
or what you need. It's maybe a project, and they say, yes, we can do that. And I can't tell you how many times I did that when I worked in the government. And then I had to come back to my boss and go, I need some clarification on this. I need some more information, when
mhm.
really she probably gave the information and I just turned off my brain and wasn't listening to her. So that's a big, huge mistake that everybody seems to do, even in a marriage. I mean, you see yourself nodding to your husband and
Oh,
then
yeah,
going, what did he say?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so it's personal too. So this is a huge red flag in negotiation. After you've nailed your active communication, don't forget that it's your turn to listen intently and listen to the response
Mhm,
and or respond yourself. Remember, the real meat of the conversation isn't what comes out of your mouth. It's what comes out of theirs, because you're actively listening and gathering data and information. This is why we place so much focus on labels. Labels force you to listen. When you
mhm,
keep asking yourself what you're doing to label in the conversation, your brain is focused on incoming information, not what you're going to say next.
mhm.
So you listen because you know that you need their words to inform your next move. And that's really important, but you have to be careful that labels don't stop you either. There's, it may be a label that you don't agree with or you don't know about, and that may stop you. And then you'll have to have more conversation to be able to identify what that label means and why it's important in the conversation. So,
Definitely. So we've got some advice to those of you who are new to active listening and active communication, because not everybody has done active communication. Some of you have done active listening, but most people I don't think have done active communication.
I say one thing. Yeah, because we're saying, listen to what we're saying. It's a label, active
Mhm,
communication. It's not general communication, which is what people get when they go to a communication course. And
mhm,
they also say, and well, part of it is listening actively. Active communication is a deeper way to
mhm.
converse and understand each other and find some agreement.
Yep, definitely. And that's the whole point is you're taking this deeper.
Mhm.
So if you are new to the idea of becoming an active listener and an active communicator, the mental shift can be very challenging at first because you're not used to it. And people who aren't used to making this change, it's going to take you a little while to get it. Most people have been conditioned to go into negotiations or to go into some form of communication thinking they should immediately state their case and make a point. You have to stop thinking that way. That's not the way that this works. While there are times when you should definitely speak first, your communication efforts should always be focused on gathering more information. Understanding the value of listening is one of the first steps towards sharpening your negotiation skills and your communication skills. You need to have patience with yourself and with the process because it does take a while. If you're not used to this approach, going into a conversation with the intention of understanding can seem like a waste of time. But in reality, that approach will bring you to a point of collaboration and problem solving much faster. And that's one of the things that we all want is we want to be able to solve problems. In the long run, it also shortens your time frame. Different different options always take longer to solve than joint efforts to address issues. You want to be able to find that common ground. You want to be able to come up with an idea that works for everyone involved. We always mean well when we have the solution and implementation figured out. You would think it would save lots of time on both sides if we started with the solution itself. However, with this approach, there is an undertone of, I'm smarter than you. I know the problem better than you do. And if your communication makes the other side feel that way, they are almost certainly going to dig their heels in, and nobody's going to come up with a solution to the problem. The negotiation table is where solutions are created, not presented. You have to work together, both sides, to come up with the solution.
And you were talking about how much longer it takes for
Mhm.
somebody to change from fast-paced communication and some active listening over to uh, taking time to communicate
Mhm.
and get the information. I remember sitting around a table and doing that, trying to come together with, sorry, my thing is coming together and with the other group, with rest of the group. And it was like, this is taking so long. But in essence, we really came out with a better understanding of the problem, but we came out with a solution that everybody who had their own idea could agree with. And that means that that solution would be long term. It wouldn't break down like some solutions do when you return to the problem at hand.
Yeah.
So, so active listening and active communication is building trust.
Yes.
Active communication is a tool that helps the other side feel comfortable. We just talked about that.
Mhm.
Time and delivery of any communication is imperative. So the use of silence is an ever-present part of execution at the
Mhm.
table as well. So silence, you heard the term silence is golden. And, as a manager, you and a coach, you have to use silence. And all of a sudden, some information may come up from the other person because they
Mhm.
want to fill the gap in the silence.
Yep.
So the so the goal is uncovering the unknown and getting your counterpart to open up and thinking out loud in front of you, which is what I just said. They'll start talking. This puts you in a prime spot to showcase your active listening skills and gain a deeper understanding. But by knowing human nature and putting more focus on understanding the other side, you have built rapport and trust. And those two things are the most important thing that anybody can build between each other. Uh, Otherwise, you'll have misunderstandings and people won't do what you want and so forth. So making your ultimate case that much more persuasive human beings want to help those they trust.
Yep.
But once you've made it that far, odds are the person on the other end have already started to consider how they are going to help you. So they're starting to regurgitate it, right? An indicator that a deal is that much closer is when they are suggesting the solutions. And that's good because then you as a manager, what you've thought of that person has changed because now you know they're not lazy, they're not sort of dumb, or trying to not do the work you want them to do, or your husband's not listening to you type of thing, or your wife's not listening to you. That's not true. And so some of the things we just talked about in this segment is active listening really builds trust and rapport.
Yeah, I think in the current uh, timeline that we have right now, where we're leading up to the elections
Oh,
at the beginning of November, and I think about candidates running for office, and are they using active listening? Are they using active communication skills when they're out there, um, w you know, talking to the public, when they're out there campaigning? And I don't think they are.
and I
Uh,
understand it, because I ran for town council when I first got to Trafford, when I first went to my husband's hometown,
mhm,
and I can understand it. You wanted people to hear you,
mm,
and they really didn't care because the current council was so corrupt,
yeah,
really. And so they just, it was hard. But they wanted us, three of us, to get in. We had just put our names in and they had to accept us. So we had enough names to be able to be candidates. And we almost got in the council, unseated some people. But
mhm,
really, as you said, you just, I don't know. I mean, it takes practice
yes,
and it takes feeling comfortable.
mhm,
And it takes understanding why it's going to take a little more time for you to be able to actively communicate and remember your active listening of
mhm,
others. As a coach and as an ex-consultant, my tendency, and I have to be very careful, is to start consulting to
yeah,
my client. And really, as a coach, mainly what you do is ask questions. You're actively listening to the answers or a question that the coachee has given you. And then maybe you can say, well, I have a thought.
mhm,
You're asking for permission to help to be able to help solve the problem or add some information. But you have to be careful because that's the ethics of coaching. And the
yes,
same thing would be as a manager doesn't want to break down
mhm,
his or her team, by not trying to active listening, asking open-ended questions, and then giving time for the active communication process to occur and gain a solution if it's a problem,
mhm.
or actually a solution if it's a new process that they need to implement. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because, like I said, there's a lot of people out there who just want to talk, 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 and they want people to listen, 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 listen. And if you're not willing to do listening yourself, if you're not willing to dig deeper
Support.
in
Mhm.
this process, you've got to build up trust. You got to build up that rapport, and the one of the best ways to do that is to listen to people. And I think that's the key to all of this is to listen, to understand, and then really dig in with the communication part.
Yeah, I think with our recording on empathy, our two-part recording on
Mhm,
empathy, and now our two-part recording on active listening and active communication,
mhm.
obviously you understand that we believe that these things are really what makes the world of relationships work.
Yeah.
And so it's really important. So we'll probably come back with some more of this type of recording or focus in our recordings. So, so
But
thank you. Yeah.
yeah, until
Good.
then, thanks for joining us, everyone. Let us know if you've got any suggestions, if you've got a need for a specific topic, we'll be more than happy to dig into that for you. But we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, we do.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, everyone.